And hello, welcome to the Godscast, hosted by Graphic Policy. My name is Stephen Attewell. I write about the intersection of history, politics, and pop culture for Graphic Policy, Lawyers, Guns, and Money, Race for the Iron Throne, and a bunch of other places. And my co-host is
And I'm Chris Holcomb, and I podcast about pop culture and where we went wrong in the 90s.
very good. So the just to sort of explain what this podcast is about, we're going to be going through The Wicked and the Divine issue by issue. I've read all of
I
them.
have read none of them.
And so that way we'll sort of have a mix of opinion. I will try very, very, very hard not to spoil, Chris. And sort of we can get, unvarnished first reactions. And then towards the very end of the podcast, we'll have sort of a brief spoiler section for the kind of obsessives like me to sort of, you know, look to various Chekhov's guns and, oh, we thought this then, and now it turns out to be something else. So let's start at the beginning with sort of general impressions of the writing, of the art. What'd you think?
I'm a big fan of the art. I don't know much about art history or art style, but it seems pretty simple and effective. As far as the writing, I don't have a whole lot to chew on this time because this surprisingly is an action-heavy
Mm-hmm.
uh, issue, and we really only get a whole lot of talking out of the reporter and Lucy. So I need to get a little more
Yeah.
personality of other characters before I can really judge on that.
Okay. Well, we can come back to this question in future issues. So we start. First of all, I think it's kind of really interesting. Like all of the covers from the start. Like there's a very like bold, profile shot, and then we get kind of a title card that is incredibly mysterious. What did you think about sort of the cover to title card to like first image of the comic proper in
Well,
terms
I
of
was living for. I'm assuming this is a female identified person playing Lucy, right? Okay. Yeah, I love this
yes.
image. I was thinking, oh wow, you seem like a real estate agent in the 80s, but with better makeup. But yeah, it's not a whole lot to go on. And then of course there's all these skulls, and I'm not sure what the symbols on the title card are. Yeah, it's kind of lost me here. I'm assuming they'll become more
Yeah.
relevant as I get more into the story.
Yeah, this is sort of like deep mystery stuff that they're playing with. They're just sort of like throwing out images that you have no context for yet. Although we can sort of guess, as we go through the next few pages, that there's like a track, there's a parallel between what we're seeing here and what we see on the page. And it's really interesting or important to note that we're starting with once again. So like already there's this sort of theme of like repetition. Um, and it's on the 31st of December 1923. So it's, you know, New Year's Eve. And then, boom, the first image we get is like a skull right in our face.
Yeah, it's a deformed skull though, so I'm not sure what that like the teeth are they filed down or are these fangs? I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or is it incisors or what's exactly going on? It's a little weird. But then, as we sort of flip the page, right, we see this, table in the round and these kind of four figures sitting at the table, and there's one person sort of standing off to the side. And you'll note that on the table there's two skulls in various states of repair between each of the four people, that there's two skulls between each of them on either side, which corresponds to that,
Yeah, so I
nice little
have a
title
bit of a
card that we got.
hypothesis here. It feels like we're s-
Okay.
it mentions later that there's a cycle here, and mortals seem to take on the personalities and powers of gods. I don't know if they have memories of them, but it seems like this time there's only four left out of 12. So are
Hmm.
these the skulls? Because one of them has his head blown off. One of the skulls has his head blown
Yeah.
open.
Yeah. One of those skulls is very visibly damaged, and it's kind of right in the center of that panel too.
It's a very cool image, and it makes me wonder who the other 8 are and why these 4 survived. But it also makes me wonder about the logistics. It's like, what if one of them dies and you don't know where they are? How
Mhm.
are you going to dig up the skull? It seems a bit of a
Yeah.
pain in the ass.
So the interlocutor character sort of checks out um, with just like an amazing face mask. I was thinking that this must just take ages to draw all of these masks. And they have this like moment where they say goodbye before they do a ritual. And again, like playing on this theme of repetition, right? It's not goodbye, it's au revoir. Also
Hmm.
interesting, this is the only name that we get in this section. Is that one of them, presumably the guy with the lightning bolt type in, is Susano, who is the Japanese thunder god.
Ah, okay. I should
Mm-hmm.
Wikipedia that later.
And then we get the introduction of two kind of really important um, kind of theme slash world building elements: the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the snap. What did you think of that?
I don't know enough to have an opinion here. So clearly, their powers combine and they kill themselves. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here.
Okay,
It's clearly important. We learn later that snapping is how you execute your lethal powers, but
yeah. So clearly, we get some sense that there's this big explosive ritual that has to do, in some ways, with this theme of returning and repetition. And I really like how McKelvie draws the explosion, the sort of combination of like reds and yellows and purples. It's very sort of gives a sense of motion to.
it's very Watchmen.
Yeah. And then we get another interstitial page where we have skipped ahead 90 years plus a day, which feels very um, fairy tale esque, right? It's always, time is always, X years plus a day. There's something to that cycle. Um, and we have a whole new set of icons, and this time it's 9 in 3 groups of 3, although we don't know what they are yet. And the new subtitle is 1, 2, 3, 4, as if, if we haven't gotten it yet, like 1, 2, 3, 4 is important. And
Hmm.
this is where we meet our narrator character, Laura. Now, what do you think of Laura at first?
To be honest, I'm not very much into her. She doesn't seem to have a whole lot of agency.
Mm-hmm.
She's sort of fangirling out. I don't really know anything about her other than
Mm-hmm.
she likes to dress up and apparently she likes to have orgasms directed by gods on stage.
Yeah, I mean, she seems a very like deliberately ordinary person, right?
Hmm.
She's leaving a very kind of normal looking middle class neighborhood. Um, she's like wearing the sort of the green jacket, like kind of contrasts very sharply with sort of the blue and white where all the other girls are dressing up. Um and we definitely get the sense of like like this is cosplay, this is like going to a band and you're gonna dress up for it.
Right.
um the other thing that's kind of interesting, just in terms of like what her psychology is, you get the sense that she's really deeply unsatisfied with something, right?
Uh, I guess so. Like I said, is she still kind of
You
a
know,
cipher for me?
yeah, because she says at one point, like she's talking about, you know, uh, she's afraid that her parents would approve of what she's doing, that she wants something to be just hers.
Yeah, I kind
Um,
of feel that. I've had a similar experience when I came out to my parents and my mom like wants to talk about everything and it's like, no, this is me not this is me having an adult life with interests that are not you, Mom. So no, we're not gonna fangirl out about this. So
Yeah. And then there's that other bit where once she's put the wig on and she's done her makeup, where she says she wishes that she was the stranger in the mirror. Like, I definitely got a sense that like there are some kind of self-esteem issues, but it's also kind of like, yeah, there's this thing of identity, right?
trying to find herself. Do we know how old she
Um,
is?
it's established in just a few
Okay.
pages. We don't know yet. We know she's, fairly young. And we get another repetition of the 1, 2, 3, 4 thing. Now, like really literal, big bold black numbers on white boxes filling in the grids. And then we see the concert. What do you
This
think of this?
was I think I had a lot of flashbacks to what was that? Sandman, when Ishtar is doing her little concert and sets the
Mm-hmm.
venue on fire. So this is where I got really confused, because clearly something happens
Okay.
that is sexual or erotic in nature. And that's why people are coming
Yeah.
here. This is not a surprise to anyone. So
Yeah.
apparently there's some publicity here and people know this thing happens. So this has been going on for a while.
Yeah. I mean, this is like it's like a music venue. There's fans. There's people who know the iconography well enough to like dress up ahead of time. And it's really interesting that the way they talk
Mm-hmm.
about it, it's not exactly music. There's a couple captions where it says, I don't understand a word she's saying. Nobody does. All we know is that it means everything. And we see her, and it sounds like, or the visual looks like she's singing at the top of her lungs. But I get the sense that this is actually something called glossolalia,
Yeah,
or
that's
speaking in tongues.
that. I mean, I thought it was more, Shawshank Redemption. Like, I prefer not to know. It's just a language I don't know. But if I know what it means, it loses meaning because it's not as beautiful
Mm-hmm.
anymore. But glossolalia, yeah, that has religious
Yeah.
implications, at least. I think I've read Snow Crash, so that's where most of my information on that comes from.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like you definitely get the sense that it's like this kind of ecstatic experience, right? That they're name checking sex, religion, music, kind of
Mm-hmm.
all, being the same thing. Or, and this is like this is the thing above it, right? This is what masses aspire to be. This is what orgasms inspire to be.
Right.
This is the thing for which everything else is just the symbol. Um, you know, and then we get this moment where and this character that we should mention is Amaterasu, who looks very Florence and the Machine.
I've never seen Florence and the Machine, but I will assume you are
Yeah,
correct
I
on that.
just think
Now,
sort of
I'm flipping back
yeah.
to the symbols, the 9 symbols, the
Mm-hmm.
no skulls. Is it too early for me to be able to identify which of these symbols represent her?
Take a guess.
I have no idea. I don't know what her history is. Um, if anything, I'd say the sunburst on the lower left, but
Oh,
I
very
mean, that's just kind of
very
guessing.
close. It's the sunburst actually at the top.
Okay.
Because Amaterasu is a sun goddess.
Okay.
Um,
Bakhmet is. Did I pronounce that right?
Sakmet.
Sekhmet
Yes.
is the panther, I think.
Yeah, the lion.
Lucy is the pentacle.
Mm-hmm.
And my Wiccan friends are probably getting angry at me for saying that, but I mean, that's the obvious one. I'm not sure. We have 2 more on screen, right? But I don't remember them.
Those 3 are the ones that we meet from this cycle in this issue.
Okay.
There's a couple other that get talked about. That we get the sense that like Laura is kind of a super fan. Like she's been to a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of these because she says, she's better than Baal, better than Sekhmet, better even than Inanna, certainly better than fucking Tara.
Yeah. So all of these are strangely, I recognized all the names that are said but not pictured, and the ones that we see, I had no idea about.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so Laura kind of locks eyes with Amaterasu and has this like interesting moment where like on the one hand like the finger outstretched, it's very kind of Sistine Chapel,
Mm-hmm.
but Laura's kind of attitude in that moment seems very different.
Um,
That
different to what? To how?
well, like Adam getting poked on the finger by God. It's supposed to be
Ah,
this
she
sort of
feels chosen then.
yeah, but like there's like a greedier sense, right? She says it's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I want everything you have, which is kind of an interesting character beat.
Yeah, that is odd. But can we step back to the gods doing
Sure.
concerts thing? Because I'm starting to think about that in the context of, how do religions start, and Jesus walking around with his 12 buddies and performing miracles and stuff. It's almost a little like a traveling road show. So now I'm kind of stuck on the idea. Okay, so gods in the current universe, do they have YouTube channels? I mean, do they Twitter feeds? How do they speak to the mortals in the venues they have available to them at the time? Make any sense?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and we are going to see
Hmm.
some signs of this. I mean, certainly when we get to the um, discussion with or the interview with the journalist, like these are gods that have
Hmm.
a presence in the media in a number of different
I really
ways.
want to donate to
Um,
Lucy's Patreon.
yeah, well, that's actually an interesting question. Like, it's never, or it's not made explicitly clear in this issue. Like, so where does the money come for setting up the venue, or do they need people to do makeup, or like, how much does being a god get you in terms of also
Yeah, and what
being
kind of a staff
a
do you need
pop
behind the
star?
scenes to make all of this happen? Uh, can they do it all themselves? I'm not entirely clear on
Right.
what their powers are. It seems to involve a lot of snapping.
Yes. So speaking of snapping and power, this is where Laura is woken up by Lucy. So our sort of second speaking character of the issue, and the second god that we meet.
Yeah, this is where I got a little confused again. What year is this?
Um,
Because the art, it really, and the style feels not dated, but just vintage.
yes, well, as we're going to learn about
You're right.
Lucy very much so, she is all
So
about
she wakes up
retro.
on a yoga mat in a basement, and there's a bunch
Um,
of other. So these concerts are everyone has these
yeah, and
mind-blowing
where they're
orgasms where they pass out, and then they have a place to
passed
sort
out
of
people.
lay them until the morning. Yeah, it feels a lot like a rave where people are going on
Right.
Molly
Sort of chill
and
out
then
room.
crashing at 3 in the morning. Yeah, just a lot of really interesting, like, how do gods work in this world and how people enjoy themselves and consume
Right.
pop stars. Am I rambling too much?
Yeah. And no. I think it's all good stuff. So the interesting thing, once Laura wakes up, is that
Hmm.
Lucifer is kind of taking this weird position where like she's saying this is all fake. Like the moment after she literally lights a cigarette with her thumb. It's all special effects. It's all it's not real.
Just a bit.
Um which is kind of very different from how she'll come off later in the issue. Um, she also comes off a little bit creepy. Yeah. Um, And I was sort of like wondering, like, is this, how much of this is her trying to transgress for the sake of the role? Because like the first thing she says about herself is like she's
Hmm.
the father of lies, the adversary, the lord of flies, the old serpent, god of this world, dragon, the light bringer, Apollyon, etc. Like this is someone very into not just being a pop star in general, but being very specifically Lucifer. And like, you know, you got to be in favor of like all the bad stuff if you're Lucifer. But also is apparently like super into the Beatles.
Yeah, she seems a bit young to be into the Beatles, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, we will get an explanation. It does make sense in a certain way. Um,
But we find out that Laura is 17.
yes,
And she also says that she says earlier that the other goddess, again, I forget her name, is 17.
yeah,
So it makes me wonder, is this the age of when you can become a god? It seems like there is a history of at least these bodies existing as people before they are endowed with gods' personalities and powers. So
these are all
is she
very good
hoping to get some
questions.
splash damage and maybe become one herself? There's only nine. There's only
Ah,
nine symbols in the entry. Does that mean 3 slots are still open?
it's a very good question. So we then go to the interview, which is sort of like it's kind of a mix of between an after
Hmm.
party and an interview. And I like describing it as addressing the unbelievers because it's like an interesting relationship between kind of religion and stardom and the media.
Yeah, it's looking at gods as celebrities who have to navigate how we process them and be personal brands. Yeah, that opens up a lot of avenues of thought for me, but I'm not sure I'm qualified to have an opinion yet.
Okay, well let's just keep going with it and see what ideas we come to. So we very briefly meet Sakmet. We don't really get a ton from her, in part because you know we're she's literally told like
Right.
don't make eye
And
contact,
she's clearly
don't
going to
address
be
her.
played by Rihanna in the movie.
Um, yes, very deliberate sort of you know pop star to God references. So what did you think about the sort of conversation between Amaterasu
So
and Cassandra?
I'm not sure what to think because Cassandra is a skeptic, but I can't tell if she
Yeah.
is just the sort of the atheist perspective, like all of this can be faked. There's group hysteria, like whether she actually believes this or if she's kind of a shit disturber, like a Fox News personality. Because I'm also starting to think, well, clearly there's a lot of
Hmm.
personal branding going on here
That's an interesting question.
for the gods. So what does that mean for who this woman is and what she's about? Because she's got also got her own brand here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Well,
everyone
they're the
is
crew. They
in
have to be, don't they?
around her is in black. Um, it is interesting, speaking like back to the concert and the sort of the ecstasy experience is like she says during the interview she's been to all of these concerts and feels nothing.
Ah, I totally missed that. So, oh God. Okay, now I'm thinking you have to buy in order to feel anything,
Mm.
which has parallels in like if you open your heart to Jesus, he will
Yeah.
come to you. And I'm like, okay, so here's why these gods keep ending up on the earth and not making a bigger splash than they do, in
That
that
you have to
you
believe.
have you have to believe and you have to have some buy-in before you get any of the fun powers. Although that
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be true of Lucifer's death powers.
Yes. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting from their discussion is like there's a lot of playing around here with like identity. So clearly Cassandra is like, this is bullshit. Your name is Hazel Greenway. You're 17 years old. You're from Exeter. Like
Mhm.
you're a kid. Um, and at a certain point, like Amaterasu says, like, I no longer feel like Hazel. I'm Amaterasu, right? I am a god. I am this, being from beyond. But before that, she says you spend all your life wishing you were special, and then you find out you are. And that sounds like Hazel to me.
Mhm.
Like that's what a teenager feels. That's not a god's. I don't think gods feel insecure and desperately in need of being special.
That you're assuming. I mean, you know more about this than I do, but you're assuming that being the God piece comes with a personality and memories, and not just
Ah, well,
a
that's the big
personality or a
question.
brand.
Yeah, I just meant in the sense of like, if we're
Mhm.
starting from zero, right? And the question is, okay, are these people, had they always been gods, or were they people first and then this
Mhm.
happened to them? um and that moment where she sort of says you spend your life wishing you were special, that suggests that, like, okay, maybe she feels like Amaterasu, maybe she doesn't, but like clearly there was a time in her
Mhm.
life when she wasn't. And like she's saying it's not there, but she definitely kind of remembers it and feels it. um we do get, like, in terms of how much information we have about what the gods are and what they're for, we get a little bit of information. We learn that, for example, um, the gods are there to inspire people, right? According to Amaterasu. Um, and they're only here for 2 years, and then they go away or they die
Yeah.
or something. Um, which is useful because, like, other than that, we don't know
So,
anything.
how many issues is this comic series? Okay.
So
Oh, it's not over yet.
currently, I believe 36.
Okay.
No, it's still going, although it's heading
All
into its
right. Sorry.
final arc.
Just I'm wondering if they were planning, like, we're gonna have 2 years and then the uh comics are over.
Yeah, well, I certainly, they keep track of time in the comics, so I don't know how many issues they necessarily thought they were going to get, but they definitely, you get the sense that they're paying attention to their 2014 to 2016 calendars. Um, okay, so then we get this kind of interesting conflict between Lucifer and Cassandra, where again it's very much about identity, right? That Cassandra is saying, like, you're these teenagers who don't know anything, and Lucifer, or Lucy, um, gets really pissed at her. And I did think it was interesting. She says that she's watched her videos. So, like, one of the things that kind of got into my mind is, like, what exactly is Cassandra's, like, job? Is she a YouTuber, God forbid? Like, does she have, is she a freelancer? Does she have a magazine or a newspaper or a, online vertical or whatever that she works for? But, like,
I
clearly
get the
she's
distinct impression that she has some kind of institutional backing and an institution that has a vested interest in saying this is all fake.
right. Yeah, you definitely get the sense that she's a cynic. And, kind of hard bitten journalist. It is interesting, by the way, that, like, since there are two other people and they've got a video camera, like, there's
Mhm.
got to be some budget, even if it's a small one, because cameras don't come for free and people don't necessarily come for free. Um, and then there's this sort of, like, all of a sudden there's an action moment right after the question is posed, like, if you can perform miracles, why do you keep quiet? Um, and this is where, like, yeah, if there's any questions about whether this stuff is fake or whatever, like, here they get answered in a hurry, because, like, Amaterasu can bend bullets, and Lucifer can blow people's heads off with,
Mhm.
clicking her hands. Anything you want to sort of tee up about the sort of
Well,
action
I
set
got very
piece?
confused on who actually got shot.
That's a good question. Um, I think it's mostly so there's three people who get shot. Laura and Lucifer sort of jump away. The bullet bends around Amaterasu. Cassandra's hiding in behind the couch. And I think it's the people who were on either
Socknet,
side of
right?
um yeah, who get are two of the people who get shot. The
Right. I can't tell
staging
where
gets a little
Socknet
bit
is in
wonky.
this. Is she the
I
one
have to
jumping over the
admit.
couch? No, that's Laura.
Uh, Laura and yeah, no, she's not. Um, so yeah, so we go from like first of all, there these two gunmen who prominently have crosses around their necks, um, who seem to want Lucifer dead, especially. And then we go from there to court. Oh, and I should say, like we before we move to court, Lucifer answers the question and says, like, the reason why we're
Right.
not more obvious with the miracles is it scares the shit out of people. Uh,
It scares them enough that there are um, groups of religious. What's the word here?
Fundamentalists, fanatics.
Well, vigilante
Yeah,
or terrorist,
vigilante.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure. But so they're trying to take out Lucifer. So yeah, that's the fact that there's two of them
yeah.
makes me think that there's some kind of underground fundamentalist, uh, not army, but kind of
Organization.
watch group who
Yeah,
are after the gods. But they also seem to be specifically trying to get at Lucifer. So
yeah.
maybe
Well,
it's
you got to think about like the cultural implications of like okay, the pop star is like one particular venue by which this stuff seems to happen, but like it would kind of screw with a lot of people's kind of religious cultural attitudes if like not only are there figures claiming to be divine showing up, but there's multiple of them and they're coming from multiple different like faith
right.
traditions. you know that's got to weird people out.
Yeah, it's just it leaves me with okay. It's is the do we go like is there an organization that has existed for hundreds of years that watches for these people? Are they part of that, or are they just some group that has sprung up and doesn't like the idea of people claiming to be gods other than their own, especially Lucifer? So I'm confused.
Yeah, well, I
I don't know
imagine
how far
Lucifer
this
would be
institution goes
very
back.
problematic. Ah, good question. So, what did you think of the court appearance before the sort of the big turn that it takes? Because it's this is what I said. It was kind of interesting that Lucifer starts when we first see her talking, denying the sort of reality of what she's doing, and then when she's in court, she's like trying to provoke them into like
Yeah,
recognizing
that
her
was
legally.
interesting. I didn't. I'm trying to think about what I know about Lucifer, and Lucifer has been portrayed many ways in many different personalities and goals, but I don't know that I see what the point of her trying to get a legal precedent for God's existing to be.
Well, I don't know. Maybe she's watched Miracle on 34th Street too many times.
I mean, it's possible, but then again, there are some legal precedents. I learned last year. Did you know that in New York you can void the sale of a home if you fail to disclose that it's
Yes, yes,
haunted?
I do know that story. Um, yeah,
So
which
I forget where I heard it, but
yeah,
it's
this
what is the precedent for supernatural? I have no
I mean,
idea.
technically, the court didn't actually take a position on the realness of haunting. It was more that just if the realtor had told the people buying the house that it was known to be haunted, that would have reduced the value of the house. So it's like an honesty in advertising kind of thing.
I mean, yeah, but this is also...
Yeah, I mean, well, look, Lucifer can blow people's heads open. That's there's certain, more empirical standards for this stuff being real that you can
Well,
point to.
the place I took it was, what if some jackass on the street with a sandwich board says he's going to strike down Donald Trump, and Donald Trump dies of a heart attack? Can
Yeah.
you hold him legally liable, not like for doing it, but for, I don't know, is threatening an act of God now an actual threat?
Well, that's an interesting question because that's more or less what exactly happens between Lucifer and the judge.
Right.
Where like, Lucifer says like, so, what are you going to do to me if I click my fingers? And then clicks her fingers and all of a sudden a judge's head explodes. And then she sort of freaks out and says, that wasn't me. But that's kind of like a funny thing because, okay, how do you tell? Right? As they just pointed out, there's not exactly a scientific test that can link, clicking your fingers to someone's head exploding. But clearly someone's head just did
Yeah,
explode.
and so there are... I don't know how else... This actually made me really question the identities of the gods. Because I would assume that what they can do is specific to the particular god they are embodying. But this suggests there's someone with an identical power, or something close enough. So yeah, it makes me wonder, do they get powers and do they pick gods to be at that point?
Ah. Okay. So I guess...
Okay.
These are very good questions. So, I want to wrap this episode off before we go on too long. And in fact, I think I am just going to skip the spoiler section for this first episode because A, there's not much, and B, we've been going for a little bit. And I want to end with sort of to get your opinion on the first mystery of the series, which is who killed the judge? Who do you think?
It feels like all the suspects are in the room.
Okay.
Except for, I would have said Sakmet because she's not in the room, and then I realized, oh, that's probably because she got shot. So the fact that she's not in the witness box makes me think she's dead, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't have enough information to have an opinion yet, but I am kind of liking the idea of some kind of film noir or detective story where the suspects are supernatural beings.
Yeah. And it's interesting, we do see like the box and who's there, and it's a bunch of people that we've never seen before, and Amaterasu, Laura, and Cassandra, like the characters that we've been introduced to so far. So at the moment, that's our suspect pool. So I think we'll leave it there for our first episode, and we'll try to find out soon who done it. So thank you very much for
Can I get
listening,
a quick plug?
and we'll see you next time.
If you like hearing me complain about bad fashion in the 90s and the white nonsense that is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, check me out at Unspoiled Buffy the Vampire Slayer, unspoiledpodcast.com.
Okay, cool.
Bye.
All right, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.